Hello everyone. Well, I've now been in Japan for about a week and I'm recording this in my accommodation at Waseda University. I have been given some office space here too, but it's shared and also a bit dimly lit, so this is a better spot. Since arriving in Japan, I've spent a few days getting accustomed to being here. That's meant being sure to get out and about, travel on the trains, and visit the shops and so forth. That's partly a strategy for getting over my jet lag. I know from prior experience that if I try to do too much of my usual sort of work, sitting down and reading, then it's a recipe for falling asleep at odd times and not adjusting my body clock. I'm fortunate in that I've had quite a lot to do as well. There are always a range of administrative procedures to arriving and settling into a new institution. But this time, as I'm staying here in Japan for longer than 3 months, I've needed to comply with the legal requirements to register my address with the local city government and also register for the National Health Insurance Scheme. That meant spending last Friday afternoon at the Shinjuku City Ward Office, going through the procedures. Even though I speak good Japanese, I was a bit nervous about going there because I've not had to do that before, but the staff were unfailingly polite and helpful, and as a Japanese studies specialist, it was educational to watch the wheels of Japanese government bureaucracy turning, slowly but steadily. Visiting the ward office showed me one of those odd contrasts which those of us who are familiar with Japan are accustomed to. The office is, of course, a somewhat brutalist government office building, as you can see in the picture here, but it's right in the heart of Shinjuku, which is one of Tokyo's top entertainment districts. So one emerges from the ward office, turns a corner, and is suddenly confronted with the bright lights, bars, and less salubrious entertainment establishments of Kabukicho, a part of Shinjuku long known as an akubasho, or evil place, meaning a location where people go to satisfy their baser desires. Originally, Kabukicho was an area which grew up around Hanazono Shrine, and so the famous literary scholar Hirosue Tamotsu once wrote about it that virtue dwells in the shadow of vice. The shrine still exists. Again, one suddenly encounters a torii, a shrine gate, leading directly off a busy street, walks through it and up the path toward the shrine. If you're wondering why I'm walking along the side of the path rather than in the middle, that's because the centre of the path is for the shrine's god to come and go, and visitors aren't supposed to get in their way. It's one of those customs which is not always observed, particularly when a shrine is busy, but I don't see any harm in following the correct etiquette when one can. Shrines often have a main building and a smaller subsidiary ones too, and it was nice to be able to walk through this short promenade of torii and see the fox spirit guardians at the end. As you can see, even on a weekday morning, there was a steady stream of people coming to pay their respects to the shrine's deity, as well as the odd tourist like myself. Getting back to Hirosue's remark about virtue dwelling in the shadow of vice, perhaps the presence of the ward office in the area today, as well as the shrine, is another way in which his words still hold true. In any case, I've completed the government's requirements, those required by the Japan Foundation, which is supporting my research, and Waseda itself. March in Japan is a quiet time for universities because the academic year runs from April through to mid-February, so the campus is not that busy with only a few students about. Again, it's given me an opportunity to get settled in without the usual university hustle and bustle, but I'm also looking forward to seeing the place once all the students have returned. There will be another change come April too. In line with the government's relaxation of masking requirements, in light of the decline in the coronavirus, masks will no longer be compulsory on campus. I wonder how many people will feel confident enough to dispense with their masks after wearing them for so long. We will just have to wait and see. But I'm sure you're asking, what about the research? Well, again, I've been taking my time sorting out my plans, but I've made a start on building a list of resources, books and journal articles to read, and I've already made my first book purchases. Here they are, which I've made a start on reading. I've also paid my first visit to Waseda's library and borrowed my first 3 books. So I'm going to have plenty to read and digest over the next few days. One of the good things about being here in Japan, though, is that one finds out about events taking place which one can then attend, provided one has the time. In my case, I've been informed about a symposium taking place here on the 18th of March called The Cultural History of Ancient and Medieval Japanese Ruins, Kodai Chusei Nihon ni okeru Haikyo no Punkashi, where there will be a range of presentations discussing surviving locations, or their remnants, which are mentioned in pre-modern texts, which is a topic I'm very interested in. In addition, I've also found out that there's an exhibition being held later this month devoted to the Hyakunin isshu, a collection of 100 exemplary waka by 100 poets. The collection has long been the basis of a popular game known as karuta, or cards, which is played by families at New Year. It involves laying out cards with the second part of each waka written on them on the floor, and two people sitting on either side of them. A third person then reads out the beginning of a poem, and the other two have to identify the card with the remainder of the poem and attempt to grab it before the other person does. The winner of the game is the person with the most correct identifications and cards at the end. In order to do well at the game, one needs to memorise the poems, making Hyakunin isshu the collection of waka which is best known in Japan today. The game's popularity has resulted in the production of numerous sets of beautifully illustrated cards, with the poets and poems on them, but the collection's cultural significance is much wider than that. It was used as a stimulus for a range of material objects, perhaps most strikingly kimono patterns, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what the exhibition holds, as it's in line with my interest in the material legacy and influence of waka. Incidentally, if you want to know more about Hyakunin isshu, I can strongly recommend Pictures of the Heart by Joshua Mostow, which provides a detailed study of the collection's visual legacy. Hyakunin isshu has also made its way into popular culture, perhaps most famously in the manga and later anime series Chihayafuru, about a girl striving to become the best karuta player in Japan, although there's also the manga and anime series Shoyaku Hyakunin isshu Utakoi, which provides some liberal interpretations of some of the love poems in the collection. The compilation of the collection has long been attributed to Fujiwara no Teika, who is perhaps Japan's most influential pre-modern literary figure, both because of his undoubted skills as a poet, but also because he spent a great deal of his time copying and editing earlier texts in order to produce clean versions of them. The result was a legacy of texts, an inheritance for Teika's heirs, that shaped court culture for centuries. In fact, disputes between those heirs were to echo through the centuries after Teika's death, and influenced the world of waka profoundly. But in addition to that, it's probably not going too far to say that what we know of pre-modern Japanese literature prior to the 12th century is filtered through Teika's influence, and disentangling that is a major project for many textual scholars. Talking about that, though, is a bit beyond the scope of this talk. In any case, the exhibition will be an opportunity to gain new insights into Hyakunin isshu and its legacy. The exhibition is being held in a city called Toyama on Japan's northern coast, a 2 3/4 hour bullet train ride away from Tokyo, so I'll be taking a bit of a trip. I've not visited Toyama before, although I have been to the neighbouring city of Takaoka, which badges itself as the city of the Manyoshu. Even the local tram system is called the Manual Line, because this is where the provincial government headquarters was located in the 7th and 8th centuries, and Otomo no Yakamochi, the poet who most likely put the Manyoshu together, was posted there as governor. So, as you can see, the region has a long-lasting connection with waka. I visited Takaoka a few years back, as one of the other manual-related things the city has created is a manual botanical garden, displaying some of the plants mentioned in the collection with accompanying poems. The garden is some distance from the city, up in the mountains, and only reachable by car. You can find more information about it on wakapoetry.net in the Waka Tourism section. It's called Futagami Mountain Park. In any case, getting back to this trip's research, one of the expectations of the Japan Foundation for its fellows is that they should take part in the intellectual life of the country through presentations and discussions. So I'm in the process of arranging to give talks at a number of Japanese universities, with 3 lined up so far. I'll report on those in due course. Finally, to something a bit more Waka related, the weather, or rather, the change in temperature which marks the beginning of spring. A number of people have told me I've brought the warm weather with me to Japan, with daytime temperatures here in Tokyo now tending to hit 12 degrees centigrade or even as high as 20. It's a far cry from back home where I hear snow is falling today. The warmth will have the effect of hastening the blooming of the city's cherry trees, with some of the earlier blooming varieties already making their appearance. As a way of checking this and getting out and about, I paid a visit on Saturday to Shinjuku Gyoen, or Shinjuku National Garden, which is a fair-sized park just to the south of Japan's busiest railway station. It has various sections, but I headed straight for the traditional Japanese garden to take a walk around the lake and check out the cherry and plum trees. As you can see, the park was busy that morning with locals and also tourists enjoying the sunshine and photographing the blossoms. You can just about see them on the far side of the lake. It was a sign to me that spring is really on the way here, and so one of my tasks for the next week or so will be to start thinking about the contents of my first video on spring Waka, to continue our journey through the poetic seasons. So, watch out for that in due course. That's it for this video, and just in time too. I'm about to be able to enjoy one of my guilty Japanese pleasures, a murder mystery on TV. I've always liked them because they're quite formulaic, which means that even when I was in the early stages of learning Japanese, it was possible to understand what was going on. Nowadays, of course, I can understand far more, particularly if I put the subtitles on, which allows me to read and thus grasp some of the more difficult words. So, I'll sign off there. As always, if you have any questions about the contents of today's video, please put them in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more Waka updates. See you soon.